Friends, happy Monday, the 13th of February. It's nice to take a moment and be with you. I'm Father Bill Hill, priest at Holy Spirit Catholic Community in Rock Springs, Wyoming. I will give you a reflection on the daily readings. They're linked down below. When I'm done, click the link, read the readings prayerfully, 2, even 3 times. Then turn off the screen, spend some time with God before you move on to other things. We are working on the book of Genesis, and it's another good story to remind us these are ancient Israel's ways of understanding herself and her story. We do not read, especially these first 11 chapters, the prehistory, we do not read these as history books, as biology textbooks, as physics textbooks. We read them as ancient texts of Israel understanding her place in the world. Inspired, given by God, absolutely, but also trying our best to understand them in the context and in the time. We have here the story of Cain and Abel. Lots of ink has been spilt over the years about this, especially perhaps the mark of Cain, which even to this day, no one is going to be able to tell you what that is. But be mindful that that has been used plenty of times to justify racism, racial ideology, and diminish and degrade the dignity and the value of human persons. So if you come upon the end of this in the mark of Cain and you find that some of that's still in your heart, ask for purification, that God would help us to know that all human beings are made in the image and the likeness of God, and to let go of perhaps some of those 18th and 19th century readings of this text. We have the story of the killing of Abel by Cain. Lots of times there's questions like, why did God prefer Abel's offering? And what we want to remember is that ancient Israel was generally made up of herders and not farmers. And so it would probably be pretty natural, as they tell stories, that God would prefer the sacrifice from the herd as opposed to the farm, because they knew that God loved them and God favored their sacrifices above all others. And that comes into this story even of Cain and Abel. Do we use this as a hard and fast rule of the preference of, lambs versus grain offerings? No, we do not. We take it as a specific story from Cain and Abel that sets up then the first act of violence in the human story, at least as Israel understood it. Perhaps the question that I'd most invite you to pray into today, because I don't think that many of us are offering lamb sacrifice or grain sacrifice, but the question of Cain, am I my brother's keeper? The answer to that is yes and no, right? It's on the lips of the murderer. Let's just say that, right? But yes, we are responsible for our brothers and sisters and those around us, our neighbors and those that we can care for. We have a particular duty, especially to the poor and those who are vulnerable and those on the margins. At the same time, we don't get to control anything. We don't get to control our own lives. We don't get to control anybody else. There are limits to this as well, and I don't want to feed codependency for those that might be in there. But that concern and that care for others, that attention to our neighbor, our love for others that knows no bounds. As you hear Cain asking, am I my brother's keeper? How do you answer that question? There are those who argue that this question resounds across the scriptures, answered in all sorts of ways, and we well know, there's a lot of drama and a lot of humanness in these scriptures. How do you answer it today? By actions and by choices. Okay. Mark's gospel, right? Jesus arguing with the religiously upright who demand a sign in order to test Jesus. Maybe just a simple way of praying into our own faith. Where are we still struggling in our faith walk with the Lord? Where might we be inclined to test God and to not be willing to see with eyes of faith, not be willing to surrender control, to let go? Yeah, I think that's enough. Happy Monday, friends. Read those readings prayerfully. Pray for the gift of faith. Turn off the screen. Spend some time with God. God bless y'all.